In this new track guide, I'm going to show you the way around Kyalami racetrack, its sweeping turns and sectors from a beginner's perspective to help you find your way around the track and improve your pace. Welcome to Boonatix, a community for simracing beginners and enthusiasts alike. Kyalami is located in South Africa and was built back in 1961. It is an amazing sweeping racetrack which has gone through a few changes here and there and is very enjoyable to drive in a GT race car. But, as many other racetracks, it has some tricky spots you should be aware of. Now, if you have visited my channel before and watched some of my videos, you will notice that I did a Kyalami track progress video a few months back in June. And since then I have improved further and want to share the lessons that I learned and how I got faster on the track. I will show you helpful brake markers and reveal important tips that I learned myself while driving around the track many times. But please note, the brake markers that I suggest are actually not set in stone and are there to help finding your mark when braking. So depending on what car you drive, the setup, the brake bias it uses and how much fuel you have on board, you might need to brake earlier or even later. Kyalami has some pretty good indicators for braking on track, such as the boards before each turn, but also white lines on the tarmac and especially the curbs on the track. So let's just jump into the car together with me so I can show you around the track and reveal you its secrets. Now before I get started, just a quick update on my progress and times. As you can see, I was doing a comparison video back in June where I was driving the Mercedes-AMG GT3 on Kyalami because I was able to push it to a lap time of 1:43.5. Now since then a lot of things have changed. I gained a lot of experience, practice with different cars on different tracks and overall improved my feeling. And I was finally able, when going back to Kyalami, to really push a car back to 1:42.0. Now, I was really close to dipping into the 1:41s, but I still keep doing little mistakes or get stressed or just push it too hard. So the potential is definitely there, and in this beginner's track guide video, I really want to share what I have learned and give you some pointers, tips and tricks of what you need to be careful on this track and how to get faster with your car at Kyalami. So another important thing to get out of the way is actually how to know when you brake at the marker. What drivers usually mean when talking about this is looking like this, meaning you start braking as soon as you approach or reach the marker. It also depends on the car and view out of your front windscreen. For example, for me it typically is when I reach a brake marker board to have it in the corner of my windscreen or when it is lining up with the hood of my car. Or for example, when I see a line sticking out on track before or after a braking board. Or when reaching the beginning of a curb with the hood of my car. Now, just as a reminder again, the brake distance is depending on your car setup, the weight of the car and how confident you actually feel. So just please take my suggested brake markers as indicators for yourself to start a bit earlier in the beginning and just step by step try and find your optimal brake marker around my suggested markers. So let's jump into the car and head down the start-finish straight full throttle, and actually the first corner is the little right kink that is coming up and it's really called the kink. We just keep it full throttle while approaching the actual second corner, which is called Crowthorne. And here our brake marker is the 100-meter board with the white line sticking out on track. You want to definitely brake before that, and as I said, depending on your car, the weight and your own driving skill and confidence, you can definitely brake a bit earlier. But this is our brake indicator and we want to align the car on the right hand side on the track. You can even use a bit of the curbs, and when we are heading into this second turn, we actually want to keep a maybe tiny bit of a later apex and turn-in point and then really throw it into the corner and cutting around the inside of the curbs just a little bit, like I'm doing now. You can see that even though this was one of my fastest laps, I was pretty far away from the curb. So as you can see here with the black rubber, you can definitely use part of the curbs and really just go over them. They don't really unsettle your car, and this will enable you to take more acceleration and more speed and not drift as far out on the right side of the track, because you need to align yourself for the upcoming 2, next and even 3 corners. And the important thing here to note is that actually you should never look at a turn on its own. You should always keep in mind that the track is built and consists of different sectors. So you have to already keep in mind when you are approaching the first turn here that you have actually another flowing turn and then another flowing turn and then a break point for another tighter turn coming up. So in this case, we actually want to keep the car more in the middle to align ourselves for the next right-hander and for the next left, which we actually take completely flat like this. So I'm moving the car to the left, turn it in to the right. It's absolutely okay to use a bit of the curbs. So in this example, I could have actually used a tiny bit more of the curbs. You don't want to go really far onto these curbs because they will unsettle your car and maybe make you lose control of it. And we keep full throttle onto the next left, and here you need to be really careful. Yellow sausage curb is here. You do not want to touch or go over these curbs because your car will start to fly off the track. So we just keep on full throttle, go through here, and then comes basically the next tricky sector where you don't really have a brake marker for yourself. So I try it by feeling, but you can, depending on your view on the right side, see a little telegraph tower, a black telegraph tower that you can maybe use as an indicator to start braking. And what you need to be really aware of here, that when you brake, you just straighten out the car and just brake it a little bit to get closer to the outside, and then throw in the car into this left-hander. And again, it's a bit of a later apex. Throw it in, cut a tiny bit of the curbs to have the car straightened out of the corner and take as much speed onto the next short straight. So as we can see here, a really good line cutting over the curbs. Again, a reminder, you do not want to cut more because these are a bit steeper curbs that can unsettle your car. And while we drifted out of the corner, well, not drifted, but accelerated out of the corner, we can use a bit of the curbs to take up much speed for the short little straight. So in this case, I wasn't actually really using the curbs. So again, a bit of time lost there on acceleration. And then we have a very fast corner coming up. And my brake marker here is actually, you can really see where the curbs are becoming slimmer. So this is actually my indicator that, okay, I have to start slowing down a tiny bit and turn in the car. And what you do here, this is a very fast right-hander and actually one of the few corners where you let the car coast a tiny bit. So you just gently tap your brakes, maybe even shift down a gear and then just have the car coasting. It's also a bit of a later apex where you just, take the outside line and then turn in the car and just be careful with the inside curbs. It's okay to touch them a little bit, but get as close as possible. And what you can notice when you are driving is actually the curbs and the white line here is not completely round. There's like a little nudge here and there, and these are actually your indicators that you can use to again start accelerating out of the corner, because we want to use the whole of the track to just take as much speed for again a very, very short straight, which is then heading us into the next corner like this. So as you can see, I nearly used all of the curbs here, and it's just important that again you immediately swerve the car to the right to line it up for our next brake marker, which is the 50-meter board and the white line. So here is kind of a special corner where your brake marker is not only the 50-meter board but also the white line that you can see here. And depending on the weight and your confidence in the car, is actually your brake marker really, really far ahead. I would say in qualifying mode, when you have less fuel on board and you feel really confident and your brakes and tires are all on temperature, try to get as close as possible to the beginning of the curbs to brake and turn in the car very quickly for this tight left-hander. But in race mode and when you're not so confident and feeling for the car is not so good, just try experimenting and definitely always just brake after the 50-meter board and white line, and just try to get as close as possible to this. And to me, this is also a bit of a later apex. So I brake in, I throw in the car, and then cut just a tiny bit off the curbs, which again, I'm not really doing here. So you have to be careful. This is also a bit of a steep curb that can unsettle the car. So just use a tiny bit of the curbs when you're throwing in the left corner, because then you can immediately accelerate out of this corner, and always utilize the curbs on the right hand side like I'm doing here now, and take full throttle for just a tiny amount of time, because we have the next section coming up, and they have actually a really cool name. It's turns 8 and 9, which are known as the SS, and they slope actually a little bit to the left hand side. So the track is a bit hanging down to the left, and what this actually means is that the car can unsettle very easily if you just keep coasting through the section. So the brake marker here for me is the beginning of the curbs, and you just gently touch the brakes very shortly to turn in the car for the left, and then utilize again just a tiny bit of the left hand inside curbs as we do here. So this was really perfect, and then you do not let the car coast, because as you can see here, the track is just really hanging to the left a little bit. And what you want is to just apply a little bit of throttle. You can even push a bit more on the accelerator to take the car out of this turn, and then throw it into the right, and again, cut the inside curbs and just not brake. You just release the throttle a little bit while you're throwing in the car onto the right hand curbs, and then as soon as you go off the curbs, you push the accelerator full throttle to go uphill section. So let's take a look how I'm managing here, cutting the inside, applying the throttle, and then using the left hand tarmac here is absolutely no problem. You can even use a bit more of that, and then just really speed it up into the uphill section, into a basically completely blind brake marker, which is actually your first indicator is the 50-meter board with the white line again here and here. But where you need to look is actually this little house with our flag person in there. And what you want to do is you brake as soon as you well, it's hard to say pass, but as soon as you kind of see the little house in the corner of your left, in the left corner of your windscreen, and that's basically your indicator to really brake the uphill section. And while you're braking, a really good help is actually the marketing advertising board here. So you align the car to just go straight uphill and not go off track, aligning it with the board and just braking in a straight line. And once you are uphill, you already see the turn in. So you just brake, shift down into the first gear, and then it's a really tight corner. You can completely use the inside curbs here, cut as much as you can. It's a bit of a late apex, and as you can see, again, I'm a bit too far away from the inside curbs. So I could have turned in earlier, use the inside curbs and accelerate out of that. And important here is that you do not use the outside line. You actually try to stay as close to the middle of the track as possible, because the outside curbs will unsettle your car, and you push your throttle as early as possible, but you have to be careful. It can happen that depending on the grip level and the feeling for your car, you start to lose the rear end. So be very careful when accelerating out of this corner, and do not apply as much steering as you would probably want to do, and just carefully steer out while applying full throttle onto the downhill section, because otherwise you will lose a lot of time. And what you can do here when accelerating out of the corner is actually you can use part of the right track limits here, which is absolutely no problem. Just do not hit the grass and fully accelerate downhill. We stay flat on the throttle for this left-hander, and what you can do here as well is use the inside curbs to cut around the corner, and very important, to position your car in the middle of the track and to then head into the next sector, braking into on the outside line. So we don't want to go right here, we don't want to hit the curbs on the outside or go into the dirt there. Full throttle, and your next brake marker actually here. Position yourself more on the left hand side of the track like I am doing. keep the 100-meter board as well as the little white lines here as your indicator. As you can see, I'm already on the brakes, and then just brake straight away to the outside of the turn, because the next turn has actually many different lines, but I find that one of the fastest is actually to take it from the outside and then turn it in very late, use the inside curbs, and as soon as possible apply full throttle out of the corner. So you can see as well, again, even that was my fastest lap, I'm way too far away from the curb. So I could have cut way more and already be on the accelerator out of the corner there. And you want to use also here the curbs on the left. You can even cut with most of your car around this whole section, like I am doing now with the Bentley. So you can just use all the track limit here. It is definitely not a problem. And it is very important to align yourself for one of the trickiest corners, I think, of all tracks, which is called Cheetah, the sausage corner. Depending on your car for this corner, you do not want to brake or you do not need to brake, and your indicator is the beginning of the curbs and the white line here. So in most of the cars it is enough to just lift the throttle for a short amount of time, turn in the car and immediately apply the throttle again to rotate and stabilize the car. But you have to be careful. Never, never, ever touch or go over the yellow sausage corner there, because it will completely throw off your car and letting you slide off the track. So this is really tricky to practice the turn in and to hit the apex every time. So give it a try in the car that you're using, if it is enough to just lift, turn in and accelerate, or if it is needed to just, shortly and gently tap the brakes, turn in the car and get as close as possible to the yellow sausage curb. So as you can see, I did not hit the apex at all. I was way too far away and the car was even drifting a bit. So there's a lot of time you can lose or gain in this section. Just position it right, throw it in and full throttle out of the corner to use a little bit of the left-hand curbs. That is no problem at all. And we then immediately want to hit the car again to the right side, turn it in and position ourselves for the last brake marker and the last corner. And in this case we are looking at the 50-meter board, and this is actually like the turn 2 after the straight, again a board where you want to brake before. So I'm actually always looking here onto the white little line here, because most of the time people lose the car in this sector and they just smash off the board and then you don't have any brake indicator. So that's why I'm telling you in this video about, the curbs and the little white lines, because Kyalami is doing that really, really well. And you always want to brake quite a bit before the brake board and the white line. And this again is also a bit of a later apex where you just turn it in late, but actually cut a lot of the inside and position your car for a perfect exit onto the start-finish straight. So as you can see here, I'm cutting it really, really well, not unsettling the car, because again, also a bit of steep curves that can unsettle your car when accelerating out of it. And what you can experiment here as well is you can really, really early accelerate the car out of this corner and use a lot of the right-hand side. But the trick is, if you accelerate too soon, you might slide out of the corner and lose a lot of time. So just give this a try when you can accelerate, and always remember, straighten the car when accelerating out of the corner, or else you will lose the rear and then slide into the corner. So just straighten the car, see that you have grip, and then turn in a little bit again to position yourself and really have a perfect exit. You can use a lot of the track here actually. Just, don't get into the dirt, because that is exceeding track limits. So I would say this exit was actually really on the limit, and there's a lot of speed and time to be gained when you're hitting flat out onto the start-finish straight. And here we are. This was our lap. I hope it was clear to you, and I hope you enjoyed it. And now let's just jump on board for my 142.0 lap to see how I was doing and how I was braking and how the lap went overall. So enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the second beginner lap guide that I did right now. If you have any questions or feedback, just leave it in the comments below. And please make sure that you leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to my channel. Hit the sub notification bell if you don't want to miss any future uploads or any of my live streams. I do stream regularly every week and I would look forward to you just joining me there. Ask questions, have a good time, and race with me online in a beginner-friendly community and environment. Thanks again. I hope I see you soon. Remember to stay healthy, stay safe, and I see you next time.